What's going on, YouTube? Today's NFL honors, meaning it's time for me to predict who I think is going to win each award at the NFL awards. Now, I'm going to be doing my winner and my runner-up, giving a little bit of explanation behind this, but I need to get the video out quick, so I won't give too much details. I'm just going to give out the award winner. Let's get into it. Starting off with Coach of the Year and Coordinator of the Year, I'm going to do these two since they're practically the same. For Coach of the Year, I have Dan Quinn. I think his first year as the Commanders head coach was a great year. He managed to turn this franchise around, drafted good players, and overall, what the expectations were for the Commanders versus what he actually did, he 100% deserves this Coach of the Year award. I would really like to give this award to Dan Campbell, but I just feel like Dan Quinn had harder of a struggle, and from where they last had it last season to where they have it now, I think is definitely something to consider. I don't know if he's in the consideration for the award, but Jim Harbaugh deserves to be a name to mention. Last year, the Chargers sucked, and this year, the Chargers, with not that much to work with, still managed to be a good team with Jim Harbaugh leading the way. So I think Jim Harbaugh deserves recognition, but give me Dan Quinn for the Coach of the Year. And now to kind of shift it into Coordinator of the Year, give me Ben Johnson. Ben Johnson, the reason I don't want to give the Coach of the Year to Dan Campbell is because of Ben Johnson. He was such a good coordinator, and he deserves this award. He was able to make this Lions offense so scary and so unique. So I think he 100% earns this Coordinator of the Year, and now he might even win Coach of the Year in the later future. Now, on to the Rookie of the Year. Offensive Rookie of the Year, starting off, we got Jayden Daniels. No surprise, he led his team to the playoffs. And just another clarifier, I'm not including what they do in the playoffs for the awards. I'm just counting regular season. With that being said, I still think Jayden Daniels was the best rookie in this draft class. Obviously, he was the best quarterback out of the class. And yeah, he led his team to the playoffs. Him and Dan Quinn winning the awards makes sense. I would definitely consider for Offensive Rookie of the Year Brian Thomas Jr. as well. I think Brian Thomas Jr. is such a unique player, and I think a lot of people really didn't understand him. They looked more towards Malik Nabers, more towards Brock Bowers, but Brian Thomas Jr. was the first rookie to hit 1,000 yards, and you could argue throughout the season he wasn't even their main target, so I really appreciate his game, but Jayden Daniels is the Offensive Rookie of the Year. Let's be honest. Now, up next is Defensive Rookie of the Year. This one is honestly a toss-up between two names. Jared Verse, linebacker for the Rams, and Quinyon Mitchell, corner for the Eagles. Both had absolutely great seasons for them and their team. Jared Verse, after losing Aaron Donald due to retirement, Jared Verse had to step it up, and he very much did so, and he's going to be a great defensive player for their future. The Eagles got one of the most nasty secondaries, and Quinyon Mitchell being one of their most notable defensive players as a rookie is very impressive. I'll say Jared Verse for this award, but it's really a toss-up, and I'm not going to get mad at you if you say either name. For Comeback Player of the Year, it's, in my opinion, very simple. I got Joe Burrow. Mainly because, one, he dealt with injuries last season, and this year you could argue he might win the MVP. Obviously, he's probably not, but you could argue that. And I think that alone deserves to get him this award. He came back from injury. A lot of ideas are speculating around Sam Darnold. I just don't think Sam Darnold has had near of a season Joe Burrow has had. And that's also taking into consideration the team. The Vikings are a much better team than the Bengals, so Joe Burrow had it harder to work with, but he had great stats. He's in the MVP race. Sam Darnold isn't. That's simple enough to determine who Comeback Player of the Year is. It's time for the heavy hitters. Starting off, we'll do Defensive Player of the Year. In my opinion, this is probably the hardest award to predict out of the whole night, and that's saying the MVP race is up for grabs for anyone. For the Defensive Player of the Year, I think it really comes down to two names, Trey Hendrickson and Patrick Surtain. TJ Watt, unimpressive of a season. Myles Garrett, unimpressive of a season. it really comes down to Patrick Surtain and Trey Hendrickson. I really like both of them. And so I'm leaning towards Trey Hendrickson, mostly because he is the sack holder.
What?
He won the sack title. So I would probably lean more towards him, but in terms of a defensive player, I wouldn't hate if you said Patrick Surtain. I would love a corner to win this award, but seeing how Trey Hendrickson won the sack title, I think they're going to lean more towards him. They might give it to Surtain considering his team made the playoffs, but if they don't take playoffs into account, then they should give it to Trey Hendrickson. Offensive Player of the Year is up, and this is another very tough race, but I think it's going to be very simple. You got Ja'Marr Chase, who was the Triple Crown receiver this season. Very impressive season for him. You had Derrick Henry, who was such an unstoppable force for the Ravens, but neither of them were as impactful as Saquon Barkley was for the Eagles. I think this is a no-brainer. You're going to give the award to Saquon, mainly because it'll tie into who I think will win the MVP. Saquon had 2,000 rushing yards on the season, and he was so insane, and we're just putting two and two together. Like, he didn't get as many touchdowns as he did because Jalen Hurts and the push-tush exists, but imagine the season if they let Saquon get all these touchdowns and he was, like, so self-centered. I really like Saquon's game. He's such a good player, and he's not a player first. He's a team first. So I love that about him. And he could have had such a better season, but the Eagles gave him restrictions. But it's completely fine because he still put up 2,000 rushing yards. In my opinion, it's a no-brainer. He's the Offensive Player of the Year, and it might lead into the MVP. We'll get into that next. Finally, it's up to the MVP. We got Josh Allen, Lamar Jackson, Joe Burrow, Saquon Barkley, some absolute heavy hitters, Jared Goff included. Now, who I think is going to win the award, I'm going to be honest, okay? If your team made the playoffs, you're already moving up a tier. So, I hate to say it, but Joe Burrow, you will not be winning the MVP simply because they give it to the teams that can make the playoffs with their players. Joe Burrow arguably had a better season than Lamar. You could make the argument for. Only difference is Lamar adds rushing yards as well, and his team made the playoffs. So, sucks to be Joe Burrow, but you are not going to win this MVP. And to next up, Jared Goff. You had a great season. It was very impressive, but you're getting outperformed by Lamar Jackson. So I think by default as well, you are not making the cut. Now it's coming down to three heavy hitter names: Saquon, Josh Allen, and Lamar. You could honestly give this award to any three of them in my eyes. I think all three of them are very deserving of it. But I'm going to make a cut here, and that cut is Josh Allen. This was by far his best season ever since he's been in the league, and very great for him. But you just did not have the same level of stats Lamar Jackson had. And yeah, you had a better team, and a better record, but Lamar Jackson was just so insane this year, and it's just hard to compete with a guy like that. And Saquon is Saquon, and he just put up one of the best running back seasons we've seen in a long time. So sorry, Josh Allen, but you are also not winning this award. Now, it comes down to two names. It comes down to Lamar Jackson and Saquon Barkley. This is real tough because you could argue both are the most valuable players on their team, and you could argue that Saquon is a better player than Lamar. You could argue Lamar is a better player than Saquon. It's a really tough decision. I don't know what to say. I'm going to give it to Lamar. Make it his third MVP. He just had an insane season. I don't see how you don't give it to him. And Saquon, I really wish a running back could win this award, you know. If you're taking playoffs into account for the MVP, Saquon, I mean, he's had a great postseason run, and his team's in the Super Bowl while Lamar isn't. But I don't know. I think whoever wins Offensive Player of the Year, the other person will win the MVP. So I think Lamar will win the MVP. just so they can give Saquon Offensive Player of the Year. And it sucks because I truly think Saquon is more than deserving of the MVP. But it's a quarterback award, so it's going to go to the quarterback. That's going to be it for today's video. I hope you enjoyed. If you agree with some of mine, then awesome. And if you disagreed, let me know in the comments who you think should have won these awards. The ceremony's about to start, so I got to go watch that soon. On top of that, it's just, I got to rush this video out. But I hope you enjoyed. If you did, leave a like. If you want more content like this, you can subscribe. It really helps my channel. It builds more of my brand, and then I can be able to put out even better content for you guys. Share it with your friends, leave likes, subscribe. Thank you so much. I hope you enjoyed the video.